Breaking it down, straight 6/8 out of the Rudimental Cookbook by Edward Freytag. Let's drum. Makala Checo, everybody. So, as you can tell, we're breaking down another solo, and as we always do, we are going to see what we can get at our first glance and just looking at it before we even play a note. So, just looking at it, I can tell that we are in 6/8, as the title suggests, as it says straight 6/8. And this is our first solo that is in some type of compound meter. Now, I'm pretty sure I already have a video that is talking about compound meter and like how to count it and stuff. I'll put that up here or somewhere, and if I don't, then be on the lookout because that's definitely on the way coming. But to give you some type of like crash course, a compound meter is any type of time signature that ends in 8, or really any type of time signature that can be broken down in terms of 3. I know that's not necessarily always the case, but that kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about. It's not divisible by 4. As you can tell right here, we are in 6/8, meaning that we have 6 beats in the measure and the 8th note is going to get the beat. So we have 2 different ways that we can feel this. We can either count it straight 6/8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or we can feel it in groupings of 2 sets of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Very common thing for people to do is look at this and go 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, or triplet, 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 triplet. I prefer to call it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 because it makes it easier when you start trying to count if you're having trouble with rhythms. I also like the 1 lolly, 2 lolly method because it kind of shows you where the beginning of each grouping kind of things are. Totally up to you. Doesn't really make a difference as long as you do what is comfortable to you and what makes sense to you. So at first glance, looking at this thing, I can tell that we're broken down into 3 sections, and the sections don't really look like they're connected at all. It looks like they're similar each one, but they all kind of have their own thing going on with very few rhythms that are repeating themselves. I also see a lot of flams and a few accents going on. Generally speaking, I don't see too many rudiments. I do see the flams, like I've already said. I also see some double paradiddles, some paradiddles, a few doubles. Generally speaking, this is not a very complex piece of music, rhythmically speaking. There's really only like 3 different types of rhythms that are going on here. We have the unbroken 8th notes, the 1, 2, 3, where it's totally filled. We have the broken 8th note rhythm, where it is a quarter note and an 8th note, so it's 1, 3, 1. And then we just have the dotted quarter notes. Other than that, there's nothing too crazy going on, minus the 16th notes at the very end. So measures 5, 6, 9, 10, 33, and 34 all have very similar rhythms, and really the only difference between them is if it has a flam or if it has that last 8th note on beat 6. At B we have 1, Li 2, 3, Li 4, and it's going to be difficult to make sure that we feel the space of that dotted quarter notes, because as there's a lot of black on the page and there's a lot of 8th notes going on, it's going to be very easy to want to rush that. Now this is a really good thing that in measure 19 that we have a natural sticking and just a bunch of 8th notes, because we can really focus on making sure that our spacing between each note is exactly what it needs to be. So it gives us an opportunity to really check our tempo and to be subdividing in our head, so that when we go to measure 20, we're still subdividing exactly the same, but we're only hitting on the big groups of the starting of the 3s. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Kind of thing like that, like I'm counting it in my head, and that's gonna really help us in the long run. Okay, so let's talk about measure 35 for a second. This is definitely the hardest thing rhythmically speaking, and I already kind of talked a little bit about it, but if you really look at it, it is setting you up for success because you have 4 right hands all in a row, meaning that when that 16th note starts, the spacing between beat 4 and beat 5 is exactly the same as it is between beat 1 and 2, 2 and 3, and 3 and 4. So you already have this consistency going on with the right hand going into these doubles. And if you go in with the mindset that your right hand is constant and you just throw in the left hand on the last 8th note, and then end on beat 1 of the next measure, you're gonna be okay. Now the last thing that I see that's going to be a little problematic just from first glance is going to be measure 17, 18, and 19, and that's because we have double sticking on top of groupings of 3s. Now this is going to be challenging depending on how you're feeling this. If you're feeling this solo 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, it's going to be difficult to feel where that beat is supposed to fall while you're playing these doubles. But if you're feeling it just as straight 8th notes 1 2 3 4 5 6, that's going to be way easier to keep even. Now, unlike in the last solo of 5 plus 2 equals 7, where it was mainly working on diddle control and stick control and things like that, this one's really just working on evenness of hands, spacing of notes, and dynamics. Look at the second to last line, starting at measure 29. We have double forte, then piano, then double forte, and then piano, and then we stay piano all the way until measure 35, where we crescendo to an SFZ. Now, if you don't know what SFZ stands for, that stands for really stinking loud. Okay? That means that it needs to be extremely short of a note, and it needs to be incredibly loud. Now it's a drum, it's already going to be short, because it goes duh, you know, it goes ch, you know, it doesn't, you know, drums don't really have much sustain. So this is being pretty highly demanding when it comes to dynamic control, where we have these really big highs and really big louds and these really big low and soft notes, and sometimes that can be even more difficult than the accents. Okay, enough talking about this thing and just looking at it. Let's go ahead and listen to it and see what we hear. Okay, so here we go. Okay, start pretty loud. Making sure that there's a difference between those two accent flams and non-accented flams. Alright, so I didn't catch this at first glance, but from A to B is forte, and at B is mezzo forte, and you're coming straight out of a double paradiddle going into B, which is mezzo forte. So this is a telltale sign of if you're going to be an experienced player or if you're going to be a novice player, because a novice player is going to sting that note because they're used to stinging every single note when they're done playing. So paradiddle diddle paradiddle diddle ta. No, that's not what we want. See how I immediately changed that dynamic? So I could tell right there I was starting to rush and I was really holding it back. If you listen really hard, you can tell that my notes aren't extremely even during those doubles, and it was because I was not subdividing very well. Okay, I didn't catch this at first glance either. At measure 23 and measure 24, we have paradiddles. This is equally as difficult as having the doubles because a paradiddle is a 4-note pattern and it's being placed in a 3-note grouping, which means that it's not going to really line up very well when it comes to the accents. This is a really cool thing, but it's also a very challenging thing. So make sure you get very comfortable with playing 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1. Or 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. However you want to think about it, just make sure you're comfortable with that accent pattern because it's going to come up a lot in your drumming literature. Ooh, good dynamics. We're going to go back and I want you to really listen and watch where I play on the drum with these dynamics. This is kind of a controversial thing, but I want you to see how I'm moving on the drum. So you can see that I was playing all of the double forte stuff, maybe not quite in the center, but very, very close to center. And you can also tell that I was playing the piano stuff not quite on the edge, but very close to the edge. Some people think that this is bad because when you go from the edge to the center or vice versa, this isn't necessarily a dynamic change as it is a timbre change. And there's a lot of people out there who say you should be able to control your dynamics at all different levels and on all different spots of the drum, and you definitely should. There's nothing wrong against that. But I'm going to tell you what, if you're in the middle of a rehearsal with band and you're getting yelled at by the band director because he's telling you you're playing too loud, you trick him by making him think that you're playing louder or quieter because you go to the center of the drum. or you play on the edge of the drum. So when you go to the edge, you can only play so loud, because if you play too loud, you're going to get like this really plastic, thin, nasty type of sound. But if you play nice and low, you'll get a very crisp and very nice, subtle sound. So just let that be a thought, that is a very easy way that you can get very strong, high contrasting dynamic range by controlling your dynamic range on all spots of the drum, not just in the center and not just at the edge, but everywhere in between. Alright, so let's listen to this measure 35 here. Okay, so you can see that I'm crescendoing from the edge all the way to the center, because I'm going to an SFZ with the house top. It's not a rim shot, but it definitely needs to be in the center of the drum. That's why I really kind of like to play around my dynamics using the full range of the drum and not just limiting myself to just the center or just the middle, or the, you know, between the middle being between the edge and the center and the edge, you know, things like that. And as you can see, my right hand is being consistent, and then what's going on in my head is 1 2 3 1 2 3 1, because the beginning of the double of the right hand is on 2 or 5, and the beginning of the double of the left hand is on 3 or 6, however you want to count it. And then I have my right hand that's stinging the very last note. All in all, it's not a very hard solo. It's very good as an introduction to 6/8, especially if you're not very familiar with it, or maybe you're just trying to get better with it. The rudiments aren't too crazy in here, although there are a few more flams in here than there have been in other previous solos before this one. The rudiments that we have in here are 6. We have flam accents, flam taps, double paradiddles, double stroke rolls, single paradiddles, and 5-stroke rolls. Okay, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead, smash that like button. If you really enjoyed it, go ahead, hit subscribe so that way you don't miss out on further content. And as always, Makale Chako, boom, boom!